Hello, it's June 8th, 3:30 p.m., and we're starting the policy committee meeting. Today we have Frank is here, and from the board, Archie and myself, Rachel Gilker, Archie O'Leary, and I are here, and we have a full agenda. Frank mentioned something that's not on the agenda, so we'll just start off with that, which was open meeting law.
Yep. So NISBA is currently working on a new policy because the open meetings law has changed a little bit. The boards can now have the ability to Skype in and basically have members virtually present. In the past, you had to do like a posting, and it had to be all these different things. So that's changed. NISBA is working on a board policy for us, and so our attorney is going to be working with NISBA at the same time, just because we're supposed to have something in our policy that states what we will do to go along with it. So that's required. So I just want to let you know that NISBA is working on that. Also, one other policy that I recently found out about that was kind of a surprise to everybody in the room was we had a meeting with the assistant deputy commissioners for early education, and they said that boards had to have a policy on how you select UPK, which to people who even had UPK for years didn't know that. And they couldn't provide us with a good policy. But the one thing that came out of it was that we were told explicitly that it just had to be a lottery based on everybody. We were then informed that the boards could make some determinations of how to prioritize who gets into that lottery. So we don't have answers yet, but I want to kind of let you know what we're working on is we're trying to figure out then if that means we can do economically disadvantaged or not, because we were told no, hard no on that. And then in our recent meeting with the 24 superintendents and these two individuals, we were told, well, that's a maybe. And we were also told that some districts have some CBOs that they have multiple CBOs, but those people only can take 4 people, or they can only take 5 people. And it's causing issues where they're leaving money on the table and people aren't getting in because of it, because you couldn't prioritize what organization goes first. There we are now hearing that you can prioritize it. So there's a lot of weird things going on with this where there's miscommunication coming out that we're just trying to clarify and we're working on. But I want to let you know, hopefully in the next couple months, it won't impact us this year. Our UPK enrollment was low, and so we hit our mark. We only had 16 people originally interested, and we went back out for more, but we topped out at 20 people of interest, and that doesn't mean we can guarantee. It doesn't mean that all 20 would still want to do it, but it was a low interest this year. Not really exactly sure why, but I'll give a little bit update on that. But we think in future years that might change. So having a better policy, at least being able to say we can prioritize economically disadvantaged, I think would be huge. So, 2 things.
And you mentioned CBO. Well, I don't know what that is.
Community-based organization.
Thank you. Yep. Okay.
Sorry, it's just a lingo.
No, it's good.
Serendipity is our community-based organization that we utilize.
That's okay. I keep a running tally of acronyms.
I forget.
There's so many.
I apologize.
Yeah. RG, you're good? Okay. So the next thing is meeting related also is executive sessions agenda item. The policy is 2330.
So we asked Ryan a question. I shared that with you, Rachel, the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you want to pull it? Because I don't remember. I can get it really quick.
Yeah, let me pull out your email.
Yeah, our question was number 10.
Mm-hmm.
Of why. So Ryan did answer that question for us.
Yes.
He'll get back.
And 2160.
He did agree with NISBA's revisions.
Here we go. It was that it was removed because the NISBA one to have the policy track the specific language set forth in public officers law. So a board can still convene outside of public session to engage in discussions involving students where discussions are under the purview of the IDEA or FERPA. And this exception is set forth in public officers law section 1083. So it's altered to adhere to the language of the law, but doesn't preclude the board from complying with other laws that provide confidentiality. Margie?
Take it out. So
Yes, so that's why they took out 1 through 8. Like 1 through 8's there. He's not recommending that we put 10 back in.
yeah, if you're going to take 10 out, then you want something in here to say, you know, or any other subject which, you know, pursuant to law requires a confidential discussion, right? Like, right, because you're not going to discuss a particular student's IEP, right, in a public meeting. It's just not.
Well, that's FERPA and IDA. You just can't. The law says you can't do it anyways.
Exactly. So,
Right.
so is that not executive session then? It's just a private meeting, a confidential meeting pursuant to FERPA or the IDEA?
It sounds like that's what Ryan is saying, that those don't need to be covered by executive session policy because they're already covered by FERPA or IDA.
Okay.
IDEA.
Setting is, it would not then be an executive session.
I believe so. I believe, so I believe, like, you know, discussions of an IEP really are not board issues. They one of these Part 200 regulations and underneath the Individual with Disabilities Act. So, you know, and if something came up that regarded that, then the board would have to make a decision on, then it would go through there. But I don't believe that would go into it from what they're saying, because NISBA took it out and so did Ryan.
Here's a question. Do we, and I think this is what RG said, and this is where I would think for future reviewers of this policy, the idea that saying something like items that would be covered under FERPA, laws such as FERPA or IDEA would fall into that, would not fall into the executive session policy.
So,
but that gets a little bit too much like we're providing commentary on the policy.
I'm fine with asking if that should go in. Like, executive session laws are very specific. Like, that's the one thing they tell superintendents in superintendent school is there is very specific things on executive session. Like, you know, so that's why, like, if we're going to add something to that policy, I just would want him to, like, give us a sign off on it. Or
I think we would be adding, we would be specifically excluding.
Yeah, we'd be saying that things that fall under the purview of those other laws aren't part of the executive session policy, and therefore aren't necessarily, they don't fall into executive session.
Is that what he said?
I'm
gonna reread it too. But yeah, I'm okay with writing something like that. Again, I just would like to make sure that
it says they convene outside of public session, but it doesn't say that it's executive session or not.
That's the thing. No disrespect. Sometimes attorneys they speak in attorney speak and not. I don't understand it sometimes either. So clarity's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess
So-
that's the problem, right? Is there are only limited times when a board can meet in private. So do we need to make clear that there are these other subjects that are subject to other confidentiality laws where we would meet in private, but it's not.
And maybe also subject to different foilable or reviewable, you know,
exclusions.
right.
Or-
Sorry to cut.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand what he's saying. I get why it's not in here. My concern is given that there are limited circumstances where we can meet in private.
Yeah.
Do we want
It says a board may still convene outside of public session to engage in discussions involving students or such discussions are under the purview of the IDA or FERPA. So if we wanted to, we could just, I think what you're saying, RG, is just actually create that bullet, right? Muted.
But is that still an executive session? Like, do we still convene a board meeting, call executive session, then close the executive session, reopen a board meeting under open meeting law, and announce that we just had an executive session about a topic and use that bullet? Because that's required for our executive sessions to be very clear about what we just did, which could call attention to something that is private. And that's why I think if we put it in there with executive session, we run the risk of exposing things that are meant to be private. Without my knowledge of FERPA, I'm speaking beyond my area.
I'm drafting a letter to Ryan right now.
Okay. So 2330 is not ready for the board to review. We'll go back.
Because I want to clarify that I'm asking the right question for.
Yeah.
Why? This question. If we were to meet regarding the laws with IDA or FERPA, is that considered executive, right? Is that the first question? RG, is that what we were?
No, I don't think is that considered executive, because it's definitely not.
Okay.
Should we specify in the policy that meetings pursuant to some other law that requires confidentiality are not covered under the executive session policy, which stems from the public officers law?
All right, can you say that one more time? I'm just going to write it down verbatim.
Let me think of how to say it. So, may we include a provision in the executive session policy specifically stating matters? You keeping up with me?
I am matters, yep.
Matters covered under other laws requiring confidentiality are not covered by the policy. Does that work?
Give me one. Just let me read it back. It's like, should we specify in policy, and may we include a revision in the executive session policy that specifically states matters covered under laws requiring confidentiality are not covered by this policy? Did I get it?
Did you say matters or like meetings, discussions? I think that's the right, like.
You're breaking up in the middle, so I'm missing some words. So you said matters, meetings, or discussions. What was it?
So I think it's meetings or discussions, right? Okay. The subject itself may require confidentiality, but what the concern is the board meeting about it in a private setting where they may be questioning what's the subject, where the board is having a closed meeting.
Okay. Meetings or discussions covered under other laws requiring confidentiality are not covered by this policy.
Yep.
Got it.
I like that. If he gets an answer back to us before tomorrow, let's still leave it for July.
Yeah, I'm laughing at that. So
Yes. Thank you. That's a very funny thing. Okay. Now, so we'll move from 2330 then. Good times. Onward to 1400 public complaints. Why is this open twice? Where is this?
Remind me, Rachel, when we tabled it because we wanted to look at the other provisions regarding which we did, right?
Yes, I think this one. I feel if I'm remembering, this one was ready to go, but I'd need refreshers in my brain. If anyone else remembers.
Yeah, I think this one looks fine.
Yeah.
Selection, Frank?
We don't have a 1400 currently, right? We have a 1440, right? Am I crazy?
No, I think you're right. I think that was the issue, right? Was we didn't have, we had a numbering issue.
Right. So we're going to abolish. So if we were to do this one, would we abolish 1440 and replace it with 1400? I think they're the same.
No, we do have a 1400.
We do?
Yes. The board recognizes the right of community members to register individual or group concerns regarding instruction, district programs, materials, operations, and/or staff members. The main goal of the district is to resolve such concerns with only the parties involved whenever possible. Public complaints about the school district will be directed to the proper.
All right. No, where I was getting confused. Sorry. There was a reference in our policy for 1440.
Yes.
All right. I apologize. We don't have a 1440. It's cross-referenced in our current policy, but we don't have one. So that's
and we don't have, or 1405.
Yeah.
Which
So
I think we're signing 1405 in.
Yeah.
If folks agree to.
I'm sorry. That's where I got confused. Too many things on one plate. Sorry about that.
Our plate runs over. All right. So if we're good with this 1400, we can send it to the board for, I think it will be first read.
Did Jess put that on already or no?
She put everything on because it's easier to delete than it is to add. And then we will delete, for example, 2330.
Perfect. Okay. I think actually I think she might even just left that one off because I wasn't sure if it'd be ready. No.
Okay.
Yeah, but whatever. Well, but that's fine. So 1400's on for this next meeting?
Yes. But it's it should be only for first read.
I'm gonna check right now.
1400 is for first read. I don't know what you just said. If you said 1400 or 1440.
I'm just pulling up the agenda and making sure.
Yeah. 1405, I think, is for approval. That's the one about federal funds. Complaints regarding federal funds. That one should be.
That was first read last meeting, I think.
Yeah. So this is if we're gonna vote whether or not we accept it.
Okay.
Oh.
She doesn't have 1400 on right now.
Okay.
I can ask her to put it on though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe 2330 could get switched into 1400.
Not on. I see 2160, 1405, and 5152.
Huh. Okay.
So I'll just ask her to add that one.
Okay, so 1400 will do first read the way the NISBA sample policy runs. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just taking notes too, just so that we have a record. Back to the agenda. And 6900 is disposal of capital property.
Okay, so let me talk about this one for a quick second. 8631 is the very in-depth procedure that can be utilized and for software, and 6900 is really the disposal of all those things anyways. And if you look at the NISBA one, it has software and hardware in it. So in my mind, and in CTS, I think we can abolish 8631 and just use NISBA's 6900, and then it covers all of it for disposal. We have procedures and protocols in place already with, NARIC, with our data privacy stuff, that what we can and can't do anyways. So that's kind of the conversation that I wanted to look at.
So 86 3631 is disposable electronic media.
Mhm.
All those hard disks, floppy disks, compact disks.
Yeah.
So
And NISBA's 6900. Ours is older.
doesn't have, but it doesn't have anything about. I'm trying to find where it says making it safe to be deleted.
And that's
Yeah.
where we add what we need. Where's NISBA's 60?
Because I'm all for getting rid of things that nobody uses and cannot be used and have no use, but if they pose risk.
I don't think is the NISBA sample policy for 6900 there.
I haven't. Yeah.
I see.
No, that's
Not in the folder.
All right, here.
No.
I'm gonna share it right now. I have it up. That's what I
thank
thought.
you. That's why I'm not.
Yeah, because I was looking
I
at
didn't
go-
notice that wasn't
I have.
NISBA. So I was like, that doesn't have anything about.
Yeah, no, you don't have what I have.
Okay.
Hold on. It's coming eventually. Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh, thank you.
Can you see that?
Yes.
It's
It'd
too
be
small.
big. It'd be nice if it was bigger.
How's that?
That's much better.
Glasses.
Ooh. That requires each year a determination should be made.
Yeah.
Do we want to do that? Do we want to have it policy requiring it?
Well, we do. I mean,
As a drill?
we should be looking through all of our stuff. And then, I mean, when I got here, there was a basement full of things that we're still sifting through that may have been sitting down there for 10 years that we can surplus. So doing it yearly is very important.
Okay, and it doesn't say all like a determination from all equipment.
No, just, you know,
Yeah.
we should decide here what's obsolete. Like right now, we're creating a tech plan, and our tech plan has a 5-year, you know, it has 5-year, 10 years, when things go obsolete, when's not, so you can budget accordingly for them. You know, those are the things that just have to be in place.
Okay.
Like, here's this one.
Yeah, I like that.
Prior
Yeah.
to equipment.
Should be destroyed. Yeah, it's permanently.
I mean, that's 8631 to me.
Yeah. I like that it says any equipment or supplies because there's paperwork and such, you know, things can get tucked into books that could be personal files, you know. Okay. I'm happy if you keep scrolling, if RG's happy with that.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's basically.
Mhm.
A lot of it's very similar to what we currently have. They just add the software stuff into it.
Yep.
So just so I'm clear, we would get rid of our 8631, get rid of our 6900.
And replace our 6900 with this 6900.
Got it.
I'm happy to put this one up for a first read. I don't know what we do to get rid of 8631.
We do an abolishment resolution.
Okay.
Do a resolution to abolish policy 8631 and 8631R, and then we would reread, you know, first read 6900 and adopt it. So,
Right. So we would do that in July if everyone goes forward.
And what about 8630?
oh, we're not there yet. You're killing me.
But that's different, right? That's okay.
It's different.
And we need that.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to send the NISBA policy right now to all of you and Jessica. Policy 6900. You put this on for first read. And then I'm going to write, we then will plan for July to adopt it. And even though we have 6900 already, we can, but we'll just do first read. And
Yeah, it's
then abolish 8631 in July.
we could do both, couldn't we? Because it's a revision.
We could. Jess isn't here, and you know,
Yeah, and I kind of feel like this is a pretty big thing. In my recollection, I don't remember ever abolishing a resolution.
so good policy is one thing that we should be doing is you look at them, and if you have ones that you can combine, you want your policy manual to be as small as possible, right?
Yeah.
But at least concise and good. So if you can combine them and do it, it really is the best option. So I agree.
Yeah.
Maybe at least have the conversation saying we will abolish, so we set it right if it's never been done here.
So
Yeah.
Frank, do we also need to abolish 8631R
Yes.
regulation?
We would abolish both.
Do we need a corresponding regulation for the new 6900?
No, because we have protocols and procedures that we utilize within our tech department and tech plan.
Okay.
Okay, but I think we should do it as a first read and then mention that it would be an abolishment, because good to trim down the policy so that it's very streamlined but not good to push things and rush things too hard so that people don't have time to really understand what's going on. So all for it.
Okay.
6645. Are we ready?
Sure.
Yeah. Not to rush. Not to say it's not good to rush and then to rush.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the sample one. Okay, so these are the samples, and we said one of these would abolish another one, right? Or take place of another one. Was that a conversation we had?
I don't remember looking at this one before. Maybe we did, but I don't
I
remember.
think we were looking at 6680 or something. There was another one that we were looking at, and then capital assets came up. Maybe you remember exactly.
This is the one you said is Jim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
With the threshold.
31.
Pardon?
Nope, not that one. Sorry, strike that.
Where is that email?
So we're on 66, right?
Jim's is 6645.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 6680, which we talked about.
Yes.
This one, Jim feels we could replace 6680 with 6645. And it's a new addition.
So which version of 6645 does Jim like?
So he likes sample 2 for the simplicity, and he likes sample 1 for the number for capitalization.
The capitalization threshold is, I'm just looking at it. The end or like,
Oh, you broke up.
You're cutting out.
sorry. So the capitalization would be the 10,000 improvement buildings and improvements and 1,000 for furniture and equipment, as opposed to the 5,000, 15,000 in the later versions.
Correct.
I think. Okay.
And this is just for asset accounting, right? And
Yeah.
policies. Which again is something that Jim and I have been working on for the past couple of years anyways.
So I liked the language that's, at the beginning of 2, and then like the more detail that comes in the later versions about the purpose of the policy and the expectations of what the school business administrator will do. so maybe we need to, well, depending on what others think, incorporate the capitalization thresholds into a later version. Because I thought sample 1 just didn't say enough.
Would you want to take the capitalization threshold and move it with number 2, like sample 2, and combine the 2 of those?
So this is where I would want Jim's opinion, but there's different types of assets specified in sample 1 that the breakdown, it's not broken down as clearly in sample 2, right? It just refers to fixed assets with a useful, with a minimum value of 1,000. So I think my guess is Jim's point was that's too low a threshold for certain types of assets, and I agree. So I think, yeah, we'd want to take out that paragraph that says all fixed assets carrying a minimum value of 1,000 and replace it with either that table that's in sample 1, like take that section, capitalization threshold, and pop it into sample 2.
Well, we can do that, or what we can do is Jim just left, like literally he left right before we started talking about this policy. I saw him. And we could invite him, like keep these notes and then just invite him to the next policy meeting that we have, which we don't have set yet because we haven't set meeting dates.
I'd be fine with that. I defer to Rachel. I definitely would want to talk it through with him.
Yeah, absolutely. You're muted.
Put the table there, but definitely not do any of this without his input.
Okay.
So the capitalization threshold.
There's no rush on this one. It's not something that we have to get done immediately. Problem with video conferencing is you can see when your tie's messed up. It was like,
I have that problem all the time.
my tie's messed up. All right, so good on 6645 then, and we'll invite Jim next time and finalize.
Yeah.
If he for some reason would prefer to just show us what it would look like, his version, or you want to bring him in?
He loves to dork out over this stuff.
Okay, I'd be thrilled to have him join us.
So please, like,
absolutely.
I hear him talk about this stuff all the time, and I glaze over every once in a while. Sorry that this is recorded, but but he really gets his stuff. Like this is where, you know, this is why we have someone like him here, because he gets it. So please, I'd rather him come in, and then you can have a better understanding of it as well.
Okay, and we will ignore samples 3, 4, 5. So.
Well, I don't know to ignore. Like, there's some language that I think is good, like in terms of record keeping, like what's to be included in the records. It may be overkill because there may be other like accounting standards that cover all this. But
you're cutting out.
Let's just get Jim's input, and then I think we're in good shape.
Yeah. Okay. So that one will not be on the agenda for tomorrow, or for tomorrow in any way. Okay. And now we can move to 4526, computer use in instruction.
And this was about bringing your own device, right? Is that what we wanted to talk about?
Yes,
okay.
Because.
So I've talked to the tech committee, and I've talked to. I froze.
Okay. No, you're good.
I'm good now. Okay. So I've talked to the tech committee, and I've talked to NARIC, and I've looked at other schools. So we can still have bring your own device. It just can't go into internal systems. So what they're working through is, and Shen has this, and Bethlehem has it in certain ways. Each school is a little different, but no school allows a bring your own device to go into an internal network. So we're trying to figure out, so we'll have a BYOD network for people to utilize next year. That's pure filtered network but it's not going into the internal setting. What we have to figure out, and this is the hard part, and I don't think we're going to be able to monitor it as well, the student network for Chromebook use will allow, we're trying to figure out what that will allow, because if a student signs into their, a student work, or a teacher brings in one and it can go to the internal setting on BYOD, then there's a possibility that we could have corrupt files, or have a potential for ransomware or other things. So we're going to have to be pretty clear in how we're figuring this out, and people have to say, no, I'm bringing in my own device. It has to go here, with the potential of losing that ability, because, ransomware and school attacks, they're increasing all the time, and we have to be very, very careful with that. So we don't want ransomware. That's the number one thing we don't want. But the BYOD, I think, is the easy solve for this. So we still allow access for people, but it still protects the district. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just going off of personal experience in terms of how I use a, computer to access either like state tax and finances system or my current work, you need the secure tunnel, right? So, whether you're using a personal device or a school device, we need the security around how you get to school systems, right? And how you access your school data. What that's going to sit on the school's network.
Right.
It doesn't matter necessarily what device you're using. Like a school's device will already be tied in.
Correct.
Using their own device, we need to make sure we have the tunnels created so that you're coming in securely.
And so this policy doesn't really specify bringing your own or not, but as long as we as an IT have developed that, I think we don't really need to change much, right? I mean, as long as we internally work on like the tunnels, as you said, and I think that's the answer. Am I wrong on that one, or?
No, I agree. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think it belongs in this policy anyway, right? It's more about how you use a computer in teaching.
Thoughts on this?
This one makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Every workplace that uses a computer, has employees using computers, has something like this, basically. And yeah. So, this is odd because we have internet safety as 45. Oh, we have 4526. So this would be a revision. Wait, no, sorry. I'm doing it again. I'm in the wrong one.
I never said policy wasn't confusing.
Who was that?
I don't know. It wasn't me.
There's so many different 40. Oh, that's 56. This is the.
So 4526, which is the one I think we were just looking at, computer use and instruction. So this one kind of cross-references other things like the code of conduct and student use of personal electronic devices. But I don't see any obvious changes to this one. This one to me seems pretty bland.
So do we want to put this one on for a first read as well, or?
Wait, I'm not seeing the NISBA 4526. I just see ours.
Oh, we've already revised it and adopted it in 6/20/2021.
Yeah, so that one, right? It looks good.
Yeah.
So
leave as is and move on, right?
Right.
Okay. I think so there's some things in the reg though, like reg needs.
Yeah.
The reg just really needs to be cleaned up. There's repeats or typos. policy itself, I don't think need to change, but the reg needs to be up a bit.
So here's what I'm going to do with that. I'm going to send the reg to Shauna Artosa, and I'm going to ask her to look this over and make it right.
Yeah, it needs to be cleaned up. If she wants to take the first crack at that, I would be very appreciative.
Yeah, I think that's the best. And honestly, she's skilled at it. Okay. Boom.
Thank you. Okay, was there anything else computer related that we were going to do?
Were we going to look at 5695 or no? Student and personal electronic devices?
We could do that, but I think we really do need to look at the code of conduct because we're going to be, I don't know if we're meeting again before
Yeah, so
the
let's.
July meeting.
Okay.
And so that one, I think we need to prioritize.
Done. Perfect.
Yeah, maybe Shauna could look at the 5695 too. And
Okay.
specifically the part that we raised the last time we talked about this, about registering devices. Because we know we're not, well, I don't think we want.
No, there's no district. So I had them check this out for me, and they wrote a little thing on here. They don't know of any district registering BYOD devices. Many restrict access to data plans on campus. So that's why the BL, am I frozen?
Nope, you're good.
And I'm sorry, that's where the idea from the BYOD came from. Is from that conversation.
Okay. So we don't want to do anything then?
No, I don't think there's really anything to have to do with it because, again, we have the BYOD. But the one thing we do need to put in here is that the district is not liable for any damages, expenses, or costs associated with the use of a personal device.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing because they've got it in their notes, and I think we referenced that in the 45-6. Let's see what we say there.
Yeah. But maybe we should put that in there and have it nice and clear. I'll fix that.
Please. But that's still going to go through Sean and then come back to the policy committee and go to the
Yeah,
lawyer.
Sean and I will talk about that one together.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay, good.
So we'll close out then with 5300 code of conduct.
So bigger changes. Is it in here? 5300. Is it on our file?
Yeah.
It is in there. It's item number 5, I think. It says 5.5.
Oh, thank you. 5.535. That's right. Ryan's changes are in red. Or you've seen them not in red, they're kind of gray now. Or green.
Really
Yeah, they were pink before.
Yeah.
They're still fuchsia.
Yeah. So they're green. So those are the things that he thought we really should have added into this as we talked about it and went through it together. And the one thing that Jen Drought had a conversation with is currently in the policy for 6th through 8th grade, it says no hats. Yet they've allowed hats for 6th to 8th grade for the past 2 years. So the recommendation in this policy is to switch that and allow for hats to be utilized.
Didn't we talk about this?
It says hats. Hats may be worn in classroom for grades 6 through 8.
Yeah, that's the change. That's a change.
Okay, that wasn't in pink.
Yeah, no, I asked Jess to change it. She might not have just made it a different color.
Okay, so then that changes. That's why this is all this and 9 through 12 is over here. So it should say. So it should just say 6 through 12.
What page are you on? I'm sorry.
That's a good question. I can't tell you. Oh, 11.
Thank you. So I can get to it.
Sorry, I'm like I don't know. It's section 5.
Yeah, but we talked about it, but I wanted her to talk to her building leadership team because there were some staff that were definitely against it.
Mm-hmm.
and felt, very strongly that kids shouldn't wear hats in school. But I think they were outnumbered. And the conversation was had that really, what harm is it doing?
Yeah,
So-
if they're disruptive, then they'd have to take them off.
Mm.
RG, before you say anything, this says and 9 through 12 here, and I just moved it to here, if you can see that.
Yep.
And I'm going to delete it here because when I read through it, I was wondering why it said and 9, 12 through 12, and I was a little surprised that hats were up. Okay.
Can you hold on? There was a little issue. It said, did the hats and headwear must allow face? Was that a different number, or it looks funky?
It says hoodies, hats / then it says hoodies should be pulled down so students can be seen actively listening, not wearing earbuds. And then hat / headwear must allow this face to be visible to staff and should not interfere.
Hoodies, that was added in middle school. High school did not have that conversation.
The hoodie, so the hoodies?
Yeah, that's grades 6 through 8 specifically.
Okay. So
High school, I don't see a bigger issue there.
So don't we need to change our dress code policy then? Because didn't we specifically address?
this is the dress code policy.
I thought we had a policy on dress code.
No,
It's part of code of conduct.
It was only in the code of conduct. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to double check that as we're talking. So keep talking and I'll look real quick, but I believe it's in the code of conduct.
Yeah, it's section 5 in the code of conduct, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're right. Disregard.
So no worries. So should we start at the top otherwise? Because there were some things that wherever it says parents, I think it should say parents and guardians, even though there's a definition of parents in here. Parent means parent, guardian, or person in parental relation to a student. But do you want to say parents and guardians?
I think if we've defined it, we don't need to.
Okay. That was a question I had. So can we go through it though? Otherwise,
Sure.
okay. I liked when you put in there RG used language that was of protected classes, and instead of listing them out, perhaps I don't know if we want to do that or not.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
I'm on page 1.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, starting at the top.
Yeah. Okay.
And so gender, what was it? So it's really kind of getting to page 2. It says protective hairstyles. Is that protective or protected hairstyles? I always thought of protective headwear as like a yellow hat that you wear in construction site, but I don't know if the language is protective hairstyles or protected hairstyles. ED.
I'm guessing it's in a new New York law that it's called protective hairstyles.
It is?
Protective, I just did like a Google search. Protective hairstyles include braids, wigs, locks, and twists.
Okay, so they're to protect, literally to protect the hair. It's not legal protection.
Right.
It's a different thing. Okay, thanks. That makes sense. When the lawyer puts it in there, I think of it as a legal term.
That was the thing that recently the Capital District superintendents and BOCES fought.
Yeah, that was a very important conversation. Thank you. And then you juxtapose that with the concept of protected classes, and
Yeah, that's protected.
yes. So, thank you, legal language. I had a question about 3B9, where it says dress appropriately for school and school functions. On page, sorry, I can figure out page 5. I don't know if there were things between there and I was just going through my notes, but please, if there's anything between pages 1 and 5.
So 3, 5, yeah, I'm looking at the wrong section. Is about, says react to direction given by teachers. Respectful. That's the one.
Can we do a favor, Rachel? Can you share your screen?
Probably not. I've never been able to.
I just can't find it. I'm struggling. I apologize.
Oh,
I found it. Or shall be dressed and groomed in a manner consistent with the dress code, or no?
yes. Dress appropriately for school and school functions.
Is that underneath essential partners?
No, it's right above it, directly above.
Thank you.
I'm clicking on it to wave. There's RG. RG's there.
I'm here.
So
yeah.
Because there is a policy that has essential partners in it, but it doesn't, and that's actually taken right out of the board policy. But I don't see the student one. So I wanted to make sure if we make a change there, we don't have to make a change in a board policy.
Okay.
Okay. I can. It doesn't matter. I mean, we can change it. Dress appropriately for school and school functions. Like, what is dress appropriately?
Exactly. I would say dress. But then there's the question of prom, where not all the. Is that considered a school function?
So here's what I'm thinking, just in terms of the way that this is formatted.
Mm-hmm.
The code comes later in this document.
Oh, got you.
So I think you can leave that in here where it is as a responsibility, but what is defined as appropriately is further on in the document.
I would just say dress consistent with the dress code instead of the word appropriately. I'm just
say like to the code of conduct dress code, but it's in the code of conduct, which is why I'd say either you just take the position that it's modified later on in the document, or it's take it out.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind just saying where was it? I think being prepared to learn in 3B means you're dressed according to dress code.
I think in this context, it should come out.
I couldn't hear you.
I think it just comes out. I think 9 comes out. Right? For the rest of B is all of expectations for
behavior
yourself.
Like
following the dress code is a separate section of the code of conduct.
Okay. Frank, how do you feel about that?
I actually, RG made complete sense to me. That I knew where you were going, but I'm like, I don't understand it. But when RG said it, like, it's already in there. And the way that you made the context, this is oneself, and that, fine, take it out. I think it's fine. I can't see how taking it out would leave any. So you have to understand, in my world, is the code of conduct not only guides students and staff, but it also guides us legally, right? And what we can and can't do, or can and can't win with a commissioner's ruling. So that's why I don't see how taking that out would have an issue with the dress code policy or a dress code infraction.
It doesn't countermand it in any way.
No, it's covered in B2 also. Be familiar with and abide by all district rules and regulations dealing with. So
and be prepared to learn, which means you're.
I think.
Oh, damn You froze, RG.
No, I just stopped talking.
Okay. Here's my- Okay, thank you. And oh, and then I want to take out the word to hold themselves. That's okay.
Yep.
That was what I had for section 3, and then I moved down to section 4, and I wanted to add an S here. We're sticking with parents to ensure for all caregivers. This one was interesting to me because where section B on it in page 6 refers to teachers and guidance counselors. I wanted to either capitalize the T on teachers or lowercase the guidance counselors. Do you have a preference, Frank?
Do we define either one up top? I'm looking.
No.
We
But
don't.
there was.
So,
Go ahead.
so you can lowercase guidance counselors because none of these are.
Yeah. Thank you. The
Hold on.
the
I don't know if it's considered guidance counselors anymore. Actually,
okay.
I got to check on that. I think
While he's checking on that, I want to point RG to number 6, where this section is specific to teachers and guidance counselors, and then guidance counselors have a separate section. But the number 6 suggests that guidance counselors are going to communicate course objectives and requirements and marking and grading procedures and things that are and then it says guidance counselors are going to do all the things above. It gets muddy for guidance counselors to what their requirements are. So that should.
Yeah. Maybe though I think you could fix it by in B. All teachers and guidance counselors are expected to come as appropriate.
Yep.
That would cure the issue if it doesn't apply.
Thank you.
as we're talking about, just really quick, parent responsibility. So I sent something to the board the other day regarding what Gilderland is doing in their resolution. A student group brought up safe gun, the ability to put in the code of conduct and direct the school administrators to share information regarding to parents of safe gun storage and their ability to do so.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be directed by resolution. I do have the resolution if the board would want to look at it. Is that something that you guys would be interested in putting in this code of conduct and in policy, or no?
I'd be interested in reviewing it.
Okay.
Definitely. I can't speak, not having read it at all.
I'm just wondering how I share that, like, because it's not policy, but it's kind of policy.
I think that might be good. Something good to talk about tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to put it in my discussion topic, so I'll just do that.
Because we won't be bringing the code of conduct to the board in this meeting, but we won't necessarily have a policy meeting before July's meeting. So it would be good to discuss this, and if we want to, then we could fold it in.
Well, here comes the one problem with that. We're going to accept the code of conduct in July.
Right.
I mean, we could probably always, because we have to do a hearing beforehand, we could always do it in August. But we typically do it at the reorg meeting. If we add the resolution for that in July, we're just going to have to make an amendment to the code of conduct later on.
But what's the language of the resolution that would
it's
impose any obligation on students, parents, right? It's on the district to distribute you know,
I'll share the resolution that Gilderland worked on because Gilderland shared it with me. So I can share it with the board afterwards. And it's like 3 pages. It's a really long resolution of expectations of the board, expectation of the school district. So, I think it's definitely something you'd want to look at before but if it's something that you guys would entertain as adding to the code of conduct, you feel it possibly could be something that would be there, I'm totally for it.
I think that would be something that I wouldn't want to do at 4:30 at the end of a policy meeting. I think it's something I wanted to give it its due diligence and the time it deserves. I think it's something that would be good to discuss at the board meeting and say, we want to review this in the future policy meeting. Perhaps we pop in a policy meeting between now and when could we do that? July.
Here'd be my suggestion. Let's move on with the code of conduct as is. We can adopt the code of conduct as it is, and then give the board time to really look at that resolution, understand it, work on their own and craft their own resolution if they want to. And then if we then choose to make a change in the code of conduct, we just then do the processes to make that change to add it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Good. Perfect plan. I just wanted to make sure that was one thing I wanted to cover today. Okay, sorry.
When you say conduct as is, you mean with Ryan's changes and the changes that we've discussed today?
Yep.
Yeah. And guidance counselors are what precisely?
Aaron hasn't gotten back to me yet. I don't think the term is guidance counselors any longer.
Okay.
Because someone corrected me the other day and I can't remember what they correct. Oh, school counselors.
School counselors.
Yeah,
all right.
Guidance counselors actually considered offensive.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's so because I've been told that several, and I have a very good friend who's also a guidance counselor who's yelled at me before. I just couldn't remember. So it's school counselor now. If we can change anything that says guidance to school, I think that would be greatly appreciated by our staff.
Got it. I'm good with that.
Okay. I did it where I could, but I think that there's probably some other spots. Moving through this section. We came back to dress code, which we already looked at the things. I had hats with a question mark next to it. I'm just scrolling through right now to come to the.
Yeah, I scrolled through earlier to look at Ryan's changes, and there was nothing that really jumped at me as something I wasn't happy with.
Oh, visitors to the school was a question. I can't remember. I know there aren't a lot of visitors, but in the high school and middle school, are they wearing badges? Do they have badge system there?
They do. They're supposed to give them out to everybody. And I'm also looking at the Raptor Technologies.
Okay.
So do you know what Raptor is?
I think it's a lizard.
No, so Raptor, it is. But Raptor Technologies is actually where you sign in. And if you don't have an ID already scanned, they have you scan an ID. It automatically then checks the child sex offender registry and flags any issues that we may or may not know about. And then after that's done, and it's been done once already, it's over. And then they print out a badge to where the person's going with the picture of the ID on it. So it's just something that a lot of, like I've used in other districts and, smaller districts, it has pros and cons, but it's something we're looking into.
Yeah, that introduces a whole bunch of issues, but
I did it in a larger district, and it was a pain, but it worked very well. But in the smaller district, it does create some more issues as well.
Yeah.
They do have a badge system that they're supposed to utilize.
Yeah. Regarding section 13, the very last part, which happens to be on page 26, it just says visitors should report to the office of the principal upon arrival at school. And do we want to call it, do you want to say the office of the principal, or do you want to have the main office or whatever? I just don't know the language that's currently being used. I've always thought of the main office, but
I think you're right. The main main office. Principal's office is.
Yeah, it seems like excuse me, I need to see Ms. Droughts now.
Yeah, no, I would say just the main office or the building.
The building off, the main building office.
Mhm.
Okay.
It'll be easier. So high school's simple because the attendance window, even though it's not a secure vestibule, is literally right next to the door.
Yes.
So that's easy. The middle school and elementary school, that is where you need to put the clarification. After we get to secure vestibule in the middle school, it's a moot point because they can't move unless they see that person. The same when we hopefully redo the elementary school, it'll be the same thing. No, I may not.
Excellent. That ends the things that I reviewed and the questions about.
One thing that we talked about reviewing last year, and I just wanted to review it quickly now, is when we did change the code of conduct to be less than what it was in the past. It's pretty much, right now for our dress code, it's basically wear what you want to wear, but there's some very specific things, but it is very, very different. We said we would revisit it. I really haven't heard anything, to be very honest with you. It hasn't come to my attention, really. I heard a couple grumbles and moans from a few people saying, "Oh, the kid's showing their belly," or "Oh, but it hasn't impacted learning, right?"
That's great.
So, yes, the kids may not be, they might be wearing pajama pants, whatever, but they're still learning every day. So I think that's the main point. It hasn't broken down society, the big, because we do have. Well, I gotta be very clear. Our dress code policy that I submitted to the board last year and we changed is very different from other places, and it hasn't broken down the fabric of Voorheesville Central School District. So it's worked in my mind, and I don't see any reason to change it. But it is something that we said last year we would revisit this year, and I just want to quickly say I've heard none, hasn't hurt learning in any way.
Are we good at the Title IX statement that Ryan changed? You saw that one, RG?
Yeah.
Okay. But that's so then we're good with it the way it is what I was trying to go with, because that was the last of Ryan's comments, and with your statement that the way we had those changes, really streamlining it, and the staff is comfortable with the code of the dress code as it is, so that they can, they haven't seen a breakdown in the fabric of society, or the fabric.
There's always going to be some people that disagree. With you, there's some people who feel that kids should dress a certain way when they come in certain places, but we as a district and as a board, and we said no, this is what the policy is, and it hasn't. Again, the main goal is, has it impacted student learning, in a negative way? And the answer, it might have impacted it in a positive way, because kids aren't worried about what they look like or how they dress, and if they're going to get in trouble for it, right? So, but we haven't seen a negative impact on student learning.
Okay, great.
Good. That's great.
So we have to have a hearing for this before we can adopt it. So would the hearing be in June and then the adoption in July?
We'll do it all in July.
Okay.
We do the hearing shortly before. There's a whole legal thing that we'll do. It's before the meeting.
Hear ye. Okay. But we're ready for the July meeting. Because the assumption is we won't have another meeting before then. Okay.
People are okay with this the way it is, and I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, me too. So,
go ahead.
Before we break, the 2160 we tabled from the last board meeting. We're out of time to go through it today, so we'll have to table it again. The one thing I wanted to point, I think we need some reporting process or avenue for somebody to report what's considered to be an ethics or anything that's of concern, right? Like if I'm a teacher and someone sends me $100 gift card, it's inappropriate and I give it back. I want somebody to know that happened so that I can't later be accused of accepting a gift that violates the policy.
Do we, we had two things. One is that sounds like it would be 2160R, where we'd have some sort of a form, right?
Or at least a specified, here's who you notify.
Yeah, I think we do that with like CPS, right? In our CPS policy, it states
Okay.
must notify this person, must know that. We don't have it doesn't have to be a specific form. We have 2160 down, so we can remove that on the agenda. So I can tell Jess to remove 2160.
Okay. Or is there? Do we have any? Are we comfortable with it? Otherwise, yeah. Put it off to.
It hasn't come up yet. I do agree that saying if you do receive a gift that is over this, please return, but also notify your direct building administrator or something like that, your direct supervisor, and document.
I think of it as like, when I was at tax and finance, right? We had very specific rules on like bribe attempts, right? And the policy you had to follow. And it was more for your protection than, anything else, right? If something happened, you're not even sure what it was, you want to be able to tell somebody so that somebody who's trying to get over can't. Not to say that that's happening here, but I think if you're going to write an ethics policy, you want to make it as bulletproof as possible, so that if there is something that happens that causes somebody concern, there's a way for them, and a documented way for them to understand, what do I do now? I'm uncomfortable with this.
But are you comfortable with the 75? I think we all agreed that 75 was the limit, and then
I'm not comfortable with it, but
right.
I'm out.
Okay.
But Tim made a point though, and because he said it's not for everyone. This really is a policy for us, right? It's for the board and for me. So what RG's saying, I completely 100% agree with, because in superintendent school, and just trainings that I've been at, the number one thing they said when you're going to be a superintendent is about this gift stuff. And they literally said, if you get this, you put it in writing, you give the check back, you copy your check. Like, there were very specific things that we're directed to do to show that we did not accept a gift over the amount that it was. And right. I've never had a gift over that amount, so it really doesn't matter. But if I ever do, I have a very specific protocol that I will follow. But I think having something in there written is a good protection for everybody.
So we can add protocols to that the policy committee, whoever, can add protocols to that for the July meeting. Is there anything else? Like Section 8 was a pretty big deal that came up as well. If you're involved with another organization that has a relationship with the district.
I think that was clarified though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, well, yes and no, right? Because what if, we're all members of the PTA?
But you have to be an officer or employee.
Yeah. We can't all be officers.
Yeah. If you're a volunteer at the PTA, it doesn't matter.
You have to be on the board or something.
You can be a volunteer, but it's when you're on the board, officer, or employee of that charitable organization. And it's just a notification. What I was told about the notification is that is just a coverall, right? Like, it's basically just saying, almost like, okay, here's what I did. It's like my medical that I give to the district each year. My doctor clears me. It's part of, it's part of what I have to do is I'm fit and healthy enough to be able to handle the stress of my job. It's and it gets given to the board clerk and it gets filed each year. Like, that's kind of what I look at this is. It's just a kind of thing that you do, just to say that it's been denoted in public that you stated it, right, and written, right. So again, it's in the point where somebody can say, "Well, you've never disclosed it." No, I have. Here's my disclosures. That's my understanding.
Yeah, and maybe it only comes up if, well, obviously it only comes up if that organization has an interaction with the board. So you could theoretically list every organization that you're on the an officer of.
You have to go through that process, right?
Well, some districts, like, again, there might be bigger districts where somebody might be on the board of an educational organization, right? Or a lobby group or something like that, where, and if they don't disclose it, that's a bigger issue, right? So I think, again, these are just, they're not written for us. These are written in general.
Yeah.
You know, for us, it may not be a very big issue because it's maybe we're on the board of, you know, Frank McCree's knitting club. And that's all it is. It's something, you know.
And it never comes to pass that the knitting club makes a donation of the world's largest ball of yarn to the district.
I still, even, but just because in the broader sense the policy is there for everybody, then I have to adhere to it.
Yeah. And
So
okay.
here's another issue, just back to the gifts part. So we have, you can't accept basically $75 under circumstances in which it could reasonably infer that the gift was intended to influence them in the performance of their official duties or was intended as a reward. So if we're going to build in some sort of a notification, do we want to build in something to say, I accepted a gift greater than $75, but it wasn't intended to influence me? This was the part that I was raising in the last board meeting as I found sort of confusing. Like, it leaves it to the recipient to determine whether it was intended to influence them. And if I'm the person who received that gift, let's say, I don't want to do that without telling somebody, right? Because then it leaves it open as to, it's based on my discretion. And I don't get to tell anybody, or there's no procedure for me to tell anybody about it, which then sort of absolves me of accepting a gift that exceeds the amount in the policy. You get it? So there's the $75 limitation, right? And then, you know, it could be, I'm a teacher in the district and I'm getting married and I have a student's parent who I'm also friends with.
Gotcha.
And they give me a $300 gift
That,
as a wedding gift.
so there's actually been cases about this.
Yep.
Glad you clarified it. So that is outside the scope of your work, right? So for me,
But if I invite every kid in my class's parent to my wedding, is it?
well, who would do that? No. Yeah, I think that's I see where you're going, but, like, you know, if I personally, again, I have friends in the community, you have friends in the community, you know, they come to my house and we have a pool party and they give me $100 as a gift for the, you know, for the hamburgers, you know, and their kids go to school here, I can justify that wasn't for that. And do I have to really report every time I have a get together with my friends? Like,
And I'm getting married and I invite every teacher in the district to my wedding. Right.
Yeah, I see where you're going. I don't know, like, I don't know how, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that one.
Perhaps. Yeah.
I just don't want something where we have to report everything like that, because then that becomes,
Who's going to deal with that paperwork?
very cumbersome. Yeah.
That's like the small community problem, because it is a small community, and
I see what you're saying, though, RG, but I also see the other end of that, and I'm just trying to.
I see both sides too, but again, like, if you're going to have a policy like this that sets out these limits, like, you don't want to get caught on the wrong side of it. And anything that leaves it to your discretion to determine whether it was intended to influence you, I just think that's I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't want to end up on the wrong side of that unknowingly.
Where is it again? Because I want to read it for my.
This,
It's number 1 in 2160. Top of page 2. I'm thinking there's probably some pretty language that could be used to cover any social occasions where there's an exchange of gifts, where ordinarily there would be exchange of gifts of that sort of value, because it is a social, emphasizing that this is a social engagement and these people socialize regularly and exchange gifts regularly. So in any situation where it's a social engagement, those gifts could be considered out of the purview of this policy. And then people can play the long con, RG.
I can ask Ryan what other school districts have done. But I mean, if we're the only district that's ever done it, there's got to be something in there automatically. I get what you're saying, but you're not more than $75. It's $75.
it goes two ways, right? It's whether you accept it or whether you reject it. I would want somebody to know that that happened.
But do you want to know that somebody had a baby and everyone got, and their friends, let's say Frank and his wife have another child, and a lot of the teachers go and bring baby shower gifts. Sorry, Frank, but some of them are expensive, and it's not to curry favor. It's rather just to celebrate a joyous occasion.
Yep, I get it, but
and that's a normal social thing to do, and they've gone out to get dinner together and hang out and barbecue and everything. So they socialize together normally, and this is a normal social. But I get that there should be a way to delineate that,
right.
but at the same time, then we get into the risk of creating egregious amounts of paperwork and almost punishing people for being friendly and generous in their social circles.
Right. But if I'm Frank and the person who gave me the $200 gift now gets promoted and the other person doesn't.
The person who gave $10 to the diaper club.
Do you want?
Well, first off, I'm not friends with anybody, so it's okay. But I know what you're saying.
That this happened, and it was my understanding that this was a gift that was not intended to influence me. It was because I had a baby and it was a joyous occasion. And
so,
right?
Okay, if this happens between people who are both, I think that this is, honestly, I like this conversation. I could do this conversation for a while. It's almost 5:00. This was supposed to be an hour-long meeting. And we have to come back to it anyway, or the policy committee, whoever's on policy committee, has to come back to it anyway. I say we table it, and I have written down in my notes that we need to add protocols and for points 1 and 8.
Can I make a suggestion?
Always.
Would you mind giving me the scenario and the statement that you're thinking, and I can bring it to Ryan, so that way when I come back to policy, he can at least kind of go over case law or any of that kind of information that he knows about it for us? Because there's got to be something like this that's already come up. I feel like we can't be the first people that ever discussed this.
You're asking RG to bring this.
Yeah, I would hope not. But I mean, the idea is, can we incorporate a reporting process into a policy like that makes it clear what the expectation is if someone receives a gift?
What if it's an exclusionary policy where if you receive any gift that is outside of normal social interactions between people with whom you normally socialize, then you report it?
Yeah, but I think that's, how do you define normal social interactions, right? The point of it,
give examples: weddings, births, birthdays, etc.
Well, I think you'd want to then give examples in your policy of situations where it would be reasonably inferred that the gift was not intended to influence you in the performance of your official duty.
Right.
Right.
So the only time you would report a gift, I'm trying to say, yes, that's a great idea to report, but the only time you report is when it doesn't fall into those normal social interactions. So you do report when someone comes over to your house that you're not friends with and brings you a $200 whatever and bottle of, we'll call it bottle of wine, and gives you $200 and then you're just like, thanks, and they're just like, yep, take it easy, bye, and you're not socially interacting with them. They just dropped it off because they happen to know where you are, and you happen to have their kid, and their kid is not doing super well in the class, and maybe you'd be encouraged to. So that's you would only notify when you don't fall into the norm. That would be my thought, because then there's not this egregious reporting that would have to happen otherwise.
We got to come back to it anyway. And I did not intend to have this whole discussion today. I just wanted to flag for you the notice issue.
It's a good discussion, though.
That's why I didn't think it was ready last meeting. There's a lot to this.
And it's because I got to be honest with you, in schools, like, this isn't a thing we talk about, but in the realm that you've worked in for so long, it makes sense. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. We don't have this problem in dairy farming, just for the record. Soil scientists do not deal with this on the daily. I think we should call it a day, if you guys are good with that. And we'll have 2160 and 4526 for the July policy meetings, as well as potentially 2330, the executive session one. And so, Frank, do you have what we need for the agenda, on and off the agenda?
I sent Jess text messages and emails as we were talking.
Great. I'm sure she's thrilled. Jess, if you listen to this, I hope you have a great holiday. And yeah,
right.
I think we're good. All right. Thanks, guys. It's been really great.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.